Let's talk then about the character of Chigurh, who is possibly one of the greatest villains in film. Like he's not this, horror movie monster.
No. Well, there's a couple things. Certainly his appearance.
Yes, he's very odd. He looks very strange.
He's odd, and he has these, at times, dead-looking eyes that are just cold. But it's not the coldness or anger of a killer. It's just like, it's almost impersonal. And so in some ways, to me, he comes across as the agent of fate.
Welcome to Socrates at the Cinema, where every episode we look at one great idea through one great film by having a great conversation about the questions that define our lives. So grab the popcorn and let's dive in. Hello and welcome to our next episode of Socrates at the Cinema. Today I am joined by my friend and colleague Bill Isley. My name is Trent Leach. And Bill, today we decided we were going to watch and discuss the 2007 film No Country for Old Men. This was written and directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. And just for our listeners' information, it is rated R. For strong graphic violence and some language, it says. So that's just FYI. And then just to give a little context for the audience and for us to sort of frame our discussion, the story, just a little bit about what is this movie about, right? It's a Coen Brothers film, so it can be both simple and complex at the same time, which is something they're really good at.
But there's not much humor.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's not as much humor in this one as maybe like a Raising Arizona.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Which is another film we need to eventually get on our list to discuss. But this film takes place in 1980 in the desert of West Texas, more or less. And the story follows three characters. A welder named Llewelyn Moss, who is out hunting, and he stumbles upon the aftermath of a drug deal gone wrong, and a briefcase with $2 million in it. And so he decides to take the money and run. And so a lot of the plot follows Llewelyn. The second character the story follows is a guy by the name of Anton Chigurh, who is a hitman that's hired by the drug dealers to track down the money and to track down Moss. So we also follow him. And then the last sort of main character of the film is Sheriff Bell. And Bell is kind of just investigating sort of what happened. He's sort of the law side of it. So it's kind of those three characters that the film sort of follows in different ways. And their stories sort of converge at certain points, though not always. So, and with these episodes, we want to always try to focus on sort of one of we would call the great ideas. This film has, as with any great film, there's a lot of things we could have chosen to focus on, but it seemed to both of us that one of the big ideas that this film explores is the idea of fate. And fate has, as an idea, has occupied the minds of a lot of the great thinkers in our tradition. And it's something that we all sort of think about with regard to really the question when it comes to our lives is how much agency do we really have over our lives? Like how much is actually within our control? And each of these three main characters sort of represent a different perspective on this question of fate. Right. So if we start with, before we jump into, and we're going to get to this very quickly, what would you say how we would define fate is? If we're talking, if this film explores fate, well, what exactly do we mean by that?
Well, and I think you've had a good definition we talked about before, but I'll just throw out it. Fate is kind of a determining factor in human affairs that we really can't control. We can get involved in it in some ways, and our choices aren't completely insignificant, but it does seem to be some sort of control that's beyond the human level. And I think
and this
society, let alone the individual.
Yeah, and this is a topic that transcends sort of theological perspectives and philosophical perspective, because whether you're a theist or an atheist, right, this is still a central question to how we view the world, right?
Yeah.
And so for some people, fate is this force that kind of exists in the world,
Yeah.
that it's just beyond our control. It's maybe even beyond the control of the gods in certain ancient
Yeah.
religions.
Yeah.
It seems like the
Certainly
gods
in the Greek tragedy.
themselves
Yeah.
are in the Greek tragedies. The gods themselves suffer at the hands of the fates.
Yeah.
And then there's the theological perspective of divine providence and God's
Mhm.
plan for the universe. But then on just the modern atheist perspective about whether we have free will at all, or is
Mhm.
everything sort of causally determined
Sure.
by biology and physics and things. And so and then what does all of that mean for our choices in the world and whether they matter or not?
Yeah.
And so this concept of fate is something that it's not just sort of an ancient or theological question,
Sure.
but it's a question that we all sort of think about: is how much freedom do I really have,
Yeah.
and what are those choices beyond it?
Yeah.
So when we look at No Country for Old Men and how fate is explored, we can look at each of these three main characters of Llewelyn, Chigurh. He's always referred to as Chigurh within the film,
Yeah.
rather than his first name for the most part.
Well,
And then
except,
Sheriff Bell.
I think Llewellyn calls him Sugar.
Sugar. Yeah. I mean, he's in the hospital. He's, what do you mean by sugar? He refers to he just refuses to pronounce it sugar. Yeah, it's always interesting. And that character, yeah, we'll get to that character in a second.
Sure.
So let's start at the beginning then with regard to the Llewellyn
Sure.
character, and what's his relationship to fate? And do you think that is he making free choices throughout the film? Is the film arguing that, or what do you think is his perspective on the question of freedom? Does he make genuine choices?
Well, yeah, that's really interesting. And um, I guess one of the things that struck me this last viewing, and it comes out in that initial scene, is first of all, the cinematography is wonderful in this film. But what you have is this wide open area.
Uh-huh.
And usually we think of this, oh, great opportunity, freedom, etc. And so it's not that. Ultimately, their choices are really going to be limited.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's just out hunting,
Yep.
misses his shot, really,
Yeah.
and then stumbles, as you say, onto this uh, bad deal gone bad, drug deal, and $2 million. And so that's something he hadn't planned.
Right.
So it just came upon him. But
Right.
then the question is, how do you react to it?
Yep.
And I've heard some people say, well, he's kind of the hero, etc. But I wouldn't call him a hero, really.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't do what, at least in my traditional ethics would have been to
Yeah.
contact the police
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so he makes the choice because he's not a wealthy guy and he's wanting the money, and so he
Yep.
takes it. That little known to him puts him in a web of events and relationships that are going to be destructive.
Yeah, and that's
I
pretty
mean,
typical of Coen Brothers films, that at
yeah,
the beginning of the film, a character makes what seems like a very minor choice,
yeah,
and the consequences is unfolding is what the film is about, right?
yeah. And what was also interesting to me is that I do think he didn't make the right moral choice, I would say,
Right.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then he goes back to give the man water,
Yeah.
which is actually a good deed
Right.
that really gets him in trouble then.
Right. If he hadn't gone back, I mean, they probably would have never there would be no leads, right?
Yeah.
At all.
Quite possibly. I know he did have
Yeah.
that,
The
tracker in the
Yeah.
money that he wasn't aware of. But yeah, that really got him caught up in the whole thing then
Yeah.
in a negative way.
Yeah. I think so. And what strikes me then is that what's interesting is, for me, for the Llewellyn character, is that he doesn't seem to be going anywhere with the money.
Mhm.
Right. He gets back and he hides it, and he gets his wife to go to stay with her mother,
Yeah.
who's I love it when she's got the cancer. I always love it when that old sort of timey way to put that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's not going anywhere in particular. He's just trying to outrun time. Like, if
Yeah.
he can just get far enough away and wait long enough, then he can have the money and sort of be set for the rest of his life. And it seems like what you see in the film is that there is this notion that part of why Llewelyn does this is because he thinks he can outsmart fate.
Yeah.
Right? He's one of the most clever people in the film.
Yeah.
Right? And how
Yeah.
he plans the hotel room and how he hides the money and how he has that he's laying in bed after he gets away. And he has this realization that there's no way this guy just stumbled upon me.
Yeah.
Right? There's no way. And that's when he finds the tracker. And
Yeah.
he seems to easily be the most clever person in the film.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah. I mean, he's certainly not the kind of dumb guy that doesn't know what he's doing. He's very confident. And his wife says he's very confident, but he's unwilling to admit that maybe he's over his head. And his wife says he would never ask for help. So that is a flaw there, I think.
Yeah. It is interesting, but that's kind of what it struck me is that's kind of the argument of the film, because in the end he doesn't get away.
Yeah.
Right. The fate of the film, if you will, does catch up with him.
Yeah.
But that's what it struck me about Llewelyn is this idea that what if I'm clever enough, I can outsmart the fates. Right.
Yeah.
Which is just ancient Greek. I mean, that's right. That's what all of the Greek tragedies are about is can I outwit the fates? Right. It's Oedipus and others.
Yeah. And like Oedipus exactly is another competent person who thinks he's avoiding the fates and actually runs into his own fulfillment of the prophecy.
Yeah.
With Llewelyn, it's a bit different. He's trying to escape what happened. He knows they're coming after him, but he really underestimates almost the necessity that he's caught, you know?
Yeah. And it is interesting. One thing I was thinking about is that this takes place in 1980.
Okay.
Right. And how easy it would have been to just drive away and disappear in 1980 because everything's cash.
Yeah.
There's no grid everything is off grid. Right. And then it's a little bit of technology that actually,
that's true.
Gets him in trouble with the tracker that's hidden in the money. But it does seem reasonable that if I just get up and go away. And one of the things that it seems like he's not smart enough about that I thought of is why doesn't he just keep driving? Like, why is he stopping at these hotel rooms to sleep? Right. If he's really trying to outrun fate, why don't you just keep running? Right. And so I don't know if that means anything, but so he's not perfectly smart.
He didn't want to get a car because he'd be tracked to the registration.
Right.
So that maybe limited him. But yeah, it's I think the main thing is, like you say, he thought he could get away and he really couldn't. And he dragged some other people into it then. Like his wife.
Yeah. And that's the other. So I think that's definitely the other person who is significant in the film that we haven't talked about much is his wife. And I think we do need to get to her
Carla
because I think
Jean,
she's the one of the more critical people in the film towards the end.
Yeah. I wanted to save her.
Yeah, you do, don't you? Yeah. And so there's Llewelyn, right? Who takes the money, but then he has a conscience, right? And I mean, it is an interesting debate. Is it wrong to take money from the drug dealers? Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a whole other ethical argument that we could have.
Right.
Is it wrong to steal from thieves? So that's what I think Llewelyn is this idea that we think if I'm just clever enough, I can outsmart the fates, right? And this then goes, if we bring this back sort of philosophically to the concept of the fates, this is one of the principles that, I mean, Llewelyn is violating one of the principles of like the Stoics, right? And what the Stoics argued is that there definitely is this concept of fate, or they would probably argue more divine providence, right? Or that there is necessity in the world.
Yeah.
Right. And that we have to accept that necessarily there is so much that is outside of my control. Yeah. And so the goal of life is to focus just on those things that are within my domain of agency and control. Yeah. Right. And those have to do with who I am. Right. It's my thoughts, my actions, and that I need to sort of purge myself of being bothered by anything outside my actions or outside my sphere of control. So the great Stoic philosopher Epictetus says, God has not made you manager of the winds, right? And so you don't worry about the weather, right? You don't bother yourself with these things that necessity dictates. I just focus on what I can control, right? And it seems like that, and part of what I can control is also my pursuit of virtue versus vice. And so it seems like Llewelyn has this idea that I can sort of outrun the moral order of the world if I'm clever enough, if I'm smart enough. And I don't think the
One of the
Stoics
things,
would go with
I
that.
don't want to, sorry, I don't want to get us
So,
off on this too much, but again,
okay.
looking at the movie,
Hmm.
this movie didn't have, to my remembrance, music. About the only
Mm,
sounds you kind of hear, at the beginning it does, but
yeah.
a lot of times what I see come in, you mentioned the wind, you can't control the wind. The
Yeah.
wind plays a role in the movie.
Mm, yeah.
I think it's the scene where Chigurh and Carla Jean at the end, the windows open and the wind blows in. So there's something to that.
Mm,
And you talked about this, but the Stoics, I don't remember if it's Chigurh talking to Llewelyn Moss or the character. I'm trying to remember Woody Harrelson's character. He says to him, "You should just accept your situation,
right. Which is very Stoic.
and you
Yeah.
would have more dignity,"
Yes.
which sounds very Stoic in that sense.
Yes, that is definitely said to who is that? Let me see if I can find that real quick.
Wells or something with his name.
Yeah, Chigurh says it uh to Wells. Yes.
Wells, yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah. But because he was still trying to get out of where he was.
So, well, let's talk then about the character of Chigurh,
Yeah.
who is, possibly one of the greatest villains in film. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
and it's but it's great because of its sort of subtlety. Like he's not this horror movie monster.
No.
He is, I mean, how would you just why is he so scary and terrifying, do you think?
Well, there's a couple things. Certainly his appearance.
Yes, he's very odd. He looks very strange. That
He's
haircut.
odd, and he has these, at times, dead-looking eyes,
Yeah.
that are just cold. And, but it's not it's not the coldness or anger of a killer.
Yeah.
It's just like it's almost impersonal.
Yes.
And so in some ways, to me, he comes across as the agent of fate.
Yeah, and that's how he sees himself, isn't it? Doesn't
Yeah.
he say that as much?
I think
What is he?
so.
Let me see if I can find it. He says as much, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Uh,
And he's like fate in the sense that he's relentless.
yes.
And Wells, the character Harrelson plays,
Yeah.
said you can't bargain with him.
Right.
And
Yeah.
which is what the way fate is. You can't bargain with fate, and it's relentless.
This is this idea that Chigurh definitely sees himself as the movement of fate in the films. Like he's acting according to necessity, but at the same time, he sort of outsources some of this to the idea of chance, right? And the coin
Oh
flips,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which is that fate or is that chance? Because those are two different concepts in sort of the
Mhm.
great ideas. The
Yeah,
concept of fortune and chance versus the concept of fate. Because
yeah,
one is utter necessity, the fate is, whereas chance is full contingency. It could
yeah.
go either way. So he's sort of got his feet in both rivers, it seems.
Well, and that is interesting, because for a couple things I thought about that. One was, of course, those are some of the most chilling scenes in the movie. I
Yeah.
mean, that simple deal at that little shop in the gas station, yeah, and the one guy, he basically, and it reminded me somewhat, not just, with him, but also at the end with, Carla Jean, Llewelyn's
Yeah.
wife,
Yeah.
about there are a couple ways to view that, and we could talk about her more later, but, is
Yeah.
this like Pascal's flipping of a coin kind of.
Yeah, that was my thought as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but, it's so he's not angry at the people or hatred
No.
towards it.
Yeah.
It's, Woody Harrelson or Wells says he has principles.
Yes. And that's why he shows up to Carla Jean's house at the
Yeah,
end.
right.
Right. I told your husband, even though your husband's now dead, that
Yeah.
there would be consequences to his actions, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I
Right.
gave him the opportunity to save you,
Yeah.
but if he didn't, he was accountable. And so
Yeah.
it seems to me that, yeah, the fate is there, but within that, there are still limited choices.
Yeah.
that you can make. I
Yeah.
mean, Moss didn't have to go back to give the guy water.
Right.
You can, you've got the choice there of flipping the coin and trying the game like the man at the gas station did.
Mm-hmm.
And even at the end, Chigurh wants to give her that chance,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but it's still very, very limited, it seems to
Yeah.
me. But it's random.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, because he doesn't offer that coin. It's not like he's going around offering coin flips before he kills. I mean, he kills a lot of people
yeah,
with no coin flip,
yeah,
right? And people that aren't involved in the drug deal either, right?
yeah,
Just he needs a car, so he kills the guy to get the car, and
yeah. Oh
right,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
because it's all justified in his mind for the end that he's been hired for.
right,
And frankly, yeah, killing of the guy who hired him
yeah,
is also justified because he went back on his word, and
yes,
he can't go back on his word. It's what he tells
yes,
Moss's wife.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
I think that maybe is why. Now that I think about it, that's part of what makes Chigurh this um this force of fate,
yeah,
because once something is set, that's it. There's no
yep,
changing it,
yep,
right?
yep,
And so if you said this is what it's going to be, then that's the way it's going to be no matter what,
yeah.
right?
And I think
Yeah.
the coin toss allows him, I can still keep my word, sort of, but I'll
Yeah.
give you this option, kind
Yeah.
of thing. But
You do wonder if there's some pleasure in that as well. Like maybe he does kind of enjoy the torture of the flip and
well, I know that
well,
was
maybe, but at the same time, it's not. I mean, there's only really two coin flip scenes, aren't there? It's the guy at the gas station and
in
Carla Jean at
her,
the end, right?
yeah,
And,
exactly.
and the guy at the gas station doesn't even know. Like Chigurh doesn't tell him, if you're wrong, I'm going to kill you, right? He's the guy's insistent. I need to know what's at stake here,
Yeah,
and he
every
never actually tells him.
well, he says everything.
Yeah, but what does that mean, right? I mean that.
And I think the reason that he decided that he had to maybe kill this guy,
Uh huh.
uh, because he was a bit of a threat to his mission. He made the comment, "Oh,
Okay.
you're from Dallas, I see."
Yeah.
So he could start identifying him and where he's coming from. That was what I thought, but yeah,
Yeah, and
his
that character does seem to be that. I mean, I don't want to make too much of the shopkeeper there,
yeah,
but he does seem like someone who's sort of is just kind of the way he describes his life is just kind of going through
mhm,
like this was the next thing, and well, I inherited this from my
yep,
in-laws, and
yep,
now we're here, and it just kind of seems to be kind of sort of passively accepting the things of life, and now all of a sudden you actually have to make a choice about whether
yeah,
you're going to live or die.
yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
so
I
that
think that's why Chigurh is sort of irritated with him. He does get
yeah.
irritated with
'Cause
him,
he's
but
not someone he's kind of passively accepted this
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
fatalism, we might say,
but,
even though he would never describe it that way, and I mean, I don't know if there's commentary on this, but the way he tries to escape it is with small talk, right? I
yeah,
mean, that's just the death of conversation, this small talk, "Well, I gotta lock up now,"
yeah,
right? And he's just like, "What do you mean you gotta lock?" And he just really pushes him on the meaning of his small talk,
yeah. Well,
which
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, maybe that's just a personal
Yeah, no, well, it was trying to avoid the issue for sure.
Right.
The movie also brings up, and this connects with Chigurh, the notion of what's honesty and
Yeah.
integrity. And Chigurh basically has this world as he sees it,
Yeah.
and he's given his word, and he's going to do it. He's been hired to do something, he's going to do it. And so that's the whole justification. And so
Yeah.
him shooting the wife at the end, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
Um, and you get Sheriff Bell
Yeah.
making the same comment about, truth and justice.
Yeah.
And well, I want to tell the truth as long as it's necessary.
Right.
Um, so there are all these questions about honesty and integrity, particularly with Chigurh, and I think Carla Jean's
Yeah, let's talk about the Carla Jean scene at the end then.
sure.
I think we're there now.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's sort of like what you had commented before, and to me on some things is you can look at it two ways. You could look at it as, and I've heard actually somebody say this, and I don't agree with it. Well, it's like Pascal's wager. You have to wager. You can't
Right.
not wager, and so she
Right.
gets killed. But I really think what your comment to me earlier was, where she says, "No, it's not about the coin. It's just you." And so the coin flip allows, I mean, Segura to avoid any kind of personal responsibility within his context of his morality, and she's pulling him back from that. She's really challenging him, saying, "No, you can talk about fate, if you will, or a
Yeah.
coin flip deciding this, but you're the one that you've made the decision that this is
Yeah.
what's going to
That's what
decide."
she says. She says the coin don't have no say. It's just you. That's what
Yeah,
she
it's
says.
just you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
And then
so I think that.
he deflects right back, right? I got
Yeah,
here the same way the coin did, right? He
yep,
does not accept
yeah,
that principle at all,
yeah. Which does
right?
bring up an interesting notion then about the idea of necessity and
Mm-hmm.
personal morality. I mean, it's
Right.
like, well, I'm who I am, and this is what I'm called to do, kind of, and I've been led here, and this is where we are.
Yeah, and and Chigurh does. I mean, the idea that there is that his morality is sort of just sort of sticking to his word, which creates sort of the necessity.
Mhm,
But at the same time, he's fairly utilitarian in
mhm,
that exchange with Woody Harrelson's character with Wells,
mhm.
right? When he says that if the rule you followed brought you to this, of what use was the rule?
Yes. Yeah.
Right, which is an interesting. He's like the rule's only good to the degree that it sort of brings you to some particular end, right, or to a particular goal. And then I just wonder, well, what about his principle, and what's the end that's bringing him to? And but
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good question about sort of the nature of morality and
Yeah.
whether it has to accomplish certain ends, or that it's only good if it's useful in me sort of getting to what I want. But that's a great line in the film, right?
Yeah.
Of what use was the rule, right? So yeah, so Carla Jean then challenges on this idea that no, you have to admit you're making choices as well. You're not the force of fate in the universe.
Yeah.
You're a person just like me, and you're making choices. So
Yeah.
it does seem like the film, on that part at least, is making the argument that okay, there are these things outside of our control, but in the end it really is us that's making these choices
Yeah.
that have consequences in the world, and we
Yep.
can't deflect it to necessity or nature or some of the, well, this is just the way I am kind of stuff. So no,
Yeah.
you're making a choice about these things.
Yeah.
It seems like that's what's being, even though she loses in the end to that degree, right?
Yeah.
Which is a powerful scene because we don't see her actually get killed,
Yeah.
um, but
He
we
wipes
know
his
she's
feet,
killed.
I think.
We know she's killed because as he comes out of the house, he checks his feet for blood, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one thing that you see for him. He's worried about getting blood on him, which
Yeah.
is a nice another metaphor. He doesn't want blood on his hands, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And so he's very averse to blood throughout the film. And that's kind of the only key at the end that he actually kills her, is that he checks his boots for blood,
Yeah.
which is interesting. It's very subtle in the film. I think you really got to
Yeah.
be paying attention. Um, to that. But then what do you think about then in the end with, because then it seems like chance does come for Chigurh
I
with the
was just
car
gonna.
accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the, as you know, the film's rated R for sort of violence. That's maybe the most gruesome part of the film. Well, maybe when he's operating on his leg,
Oh,
but then
yeah.
when he's there at the end with that bone sticking out of his
Yeah.
arm, that should give you some
Well,
chills.
even though I had seen it before too,
Yeah.
uh, I don't, but even though when that crash happened, I still jumped
Yeah, I
because
knew
it
it
was
was
really.
coming. Yeah, I was like waiting. I was like,
Now, but
ugh.
I did think about that. So somehow chance or something caught up with him there.
Yeah,
But in the end, he still survives.
he
He's
just
like an
limps away.
indestructible force. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it does seem to be this force that, yeah, that's just going to keep going through the universe, even if it's sort of bloodied and limp. And I
yeah,
also
I guess he.
wonder if at
Mhm.
the end, that did he actually get the money in the end? Because he's got those $100 bills that he pays the kids off with,
Yeah,
and so I
yeah.
wonder if that's some sort of hint that he actually did come up with the money and still went back to kill Carla
Oh,
Jean,
yeah.
even though he already had the money.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He was going to do that for her, yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt, to her, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did. That was an interesting thing because Llewellyn throws it over the fence down towards into like a field by the river
To a
or whatever,
ravine, yeah, of some kind, yeah.
and he sees it. Do we actually see him picking it up? And we never
No, he
see it.
never goes back to get it. The Wells character, we think he eyes it, right, and he sees
Yeah,
it,
he does.
but he can't get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
So, but it does seem like maybe he did find it. It is ambiguous, right?
yeah.
It's kind of, I mean, it's similar to the money that's hidden in Fargo, right?
Oh,
Which is also hidden in the same kind of briefcase, and
okay.
it's
Oh, I
buried
forgot
somewhere.
that.
And at the end, it's like, what happened to the money,
Yeah.
right? Which is it's a
Well,
nice part of sort of Coen Brothers world, if you will.
well, yeah, and actually, though, I think on a much bigger level, just a lot of unanswered questions in
Yeah.
the movie that are really good. But
Yeah, and I think that's, yeah, and so he continues sort of, but he is sort of limping through the world, we might say.
yeah, yeah.
And so there is the argument that, well, chance is going to catch up with him eventually. I don't know.
Well, and I tried 2 or 3 times and couldn't see if he ran the stoplight because he was kinda watching the kids behind him, or
I don't know. It's green. Yeah, I'm
that's
pretty
what
sure
I
it's green.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, so even there, he's obeying the law and boom, gets hit. The goodness isn't rewarded in this
No,
movie.
yeah, I mean, I mean, this is definitely a tragedy in that sense, right?
Yeah,
That the
yeah,
everyone more or less dies at the end almost, right?
yeah,
Well, that brings us to the last character that we haven't talked about yet, which is
yeah,
Sheriff Bell,
yeah.
right? He doesn't have much, we might say, sort of agency throughout the film. Like, he doesn't really do anything to propel the plot. I think the argument could be made, if we were doing sort of film interpretation, that to some degree maybe Bell is actually the main character of the film,
Mhm.
right? He begins
Right.
the film with narration and reflection, and then he ends the film with the same sort of monologues. But
Right.
throughout most of the movie, he doesn't really do anything. He's got some clever scenes, like
Mhm,
he's very smart in what he does, and he's got the bumbling sidekick.
yeah.
With that guy's one of my favorite actors. He's been in a lot since then. He's
Oh,
really
really?
good.
I didn't know him, but yeah, he was very funny, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, very good, right? And that's kind of also part of Bell's character, is that, okay, this is the next generation of sheriffs,
Oh, okay.
right? Is that this is the guy he's sort of training, and he's clearly wiser and smarter. And so, what do you think of the Bell's character with regard to the question of fate? And because another way to approach this film is with the question of violence in the world,
Mhm,
and it
mhm.
seems like a lot of Bell's stuff is related to the question of violence in the changing world.
Yeah,
And so we
yeah,
could look at it from that perspective. But I mean, but what about maybe from sort of the perspective of fate,
yeah.
which might include violence, but
Right,
um,
yeah. I would that reminded me when you were talking about Bell, the last words that one sheriff that initially picks up, Chigurh before he hangs up the phone, he says, "I've got it all under control."
yep,
And he
yep,
doesn't, obviously. You can
no.
see that she can see Chigurh getting the
Oh
hang
yeah,
up.
that's,
Yeah.
which is a quite a physical feat to be
Oh,
able
yeah.
to get you out of that, to do that. You gotta be limber to do that.
Yeah, and his wrists were cut as he was doing all this strangling. But,
Yeah,
that was the irony. Here's a guy who thinks he's in
right,
control
right.
and isn't.
Yeah,
Uh, but with, Sheriff Bell, what you've got and of course, the title of the book is No Country for Old Men,
right,
and that's really I
right,
think his view. I'm an
right,
old man. Yeah, so he does make efforts in the sense of doing his job, etcetera. They're completely unsuccessful, really,
right,
and, then he retires,
right.
and, um, he says, I think it his father or uncle that he's speaking to at the end there that's in a wheelchair,
Yeah, I thought it was another.
I
That's a
or
good
was it
question. Who is that character in relation to him? It wasn't clear. I thought maybe it was another sheriff, maybe, or
somebody that knew his father and grandfather, I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but anyway, I think he just says, "I feel
yeah,
outmatched," and what he wants to contend is the world I grew up with, you had sheriffs that didn't carry guns around, etcetera, and, what would they do in this type of era?
It's his
Uh,
uncle. It's Uncle Ellis.
Uncle, okay, his
Yeah.
uncle. So it was his
Yeah.
father's brother, most
Yeah.
likely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so the he's says, "Well, things were so different then, and now we're in
Mhm.
this, and I'm just going to check out and, give in, not get involved anymore." Which, fate can also be, we have this impersonal force, but there's also the notion of society,
Mhm.
and you as an individual, there's not much you can do when society's changed, so you're just caught up in it, and his response is, "I'm gonna retire." Uh, you know, but, um, the what the conversation with, his uncle there at the end said he brings out, "You no, things really aren't that different," and he talks
Yeah.
about the grandfather being kind of pointlessly murdered in 1909,
Right.
and I think he says to him, "You can't stop coming what's waiting on you. That's vanity." I think he's the one that says that. And so there's the notion of Sheriff Bell, excellently played by Tommy Lee Jones again, just really good, that he's kind of resisting the changes going, and he has a false view of how things are that maybe
Yeah.
like Ecclesiastes, there's nothing
Yeah.
new under the sun.
Yeah.
Nothing new.
Yeah.
It just may
Yep.
seem that way to you.
Yeah, yeah, you can't stop what's coming, ain't all waiting on you, right?
Yeah,
Is what he
always
says.
up to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so there's a bit more of the stoic in the uncle there who,
Yeah.
you know, uh,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Makes a fresh pot of coffee every week, whether it's used up or not, right? It's
and it was interesting. Why didn't you yeah, Tommy Lee Jones, Sheriff
Yeah.
Bell asked him, Why didn't you kill the guy when he got out of prison to put you in this chair or whatever?"
Yeah.
And he kinda says there wouldn't have been any point to it. And so
Right.
that's a question about the vengeance and violence
Right.
there,
Yeah.
that it can be senseless. And I do think Sheriff Bell's reacting to what seems to be such senseless violence.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
when he talks about when he's, reading the newspaper there,
oh,
and he
yeah.
talks about what's happening in California, because that's where all crazy things
Yeah,
happen, right? California.
yeah, that's true.
Um, and 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 just the senseless violence of these
Yeah,
people who are, kidnapping the elderly and torturing them to take their
yeah.
social security checks and whatnot.
Well, yeah, and I think the first one he talks about is a young boy that he sends to the electric chair.
Right.
And the young boy just said he'd been wanting to kill somebody for several
Yeah.
years, and he was like
Yeah,
14
that this
or years
yeah,
old.
there's this idea of this senseless violence and
So,
and and so yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think, Sheriff Bell's response is not one we would want to emulate.
Yeah.
You can understand it,
Yeah.
but one needs to act within the limits we have.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think, just like the Greek tragedies, you can
Yeah.
make choices, but they
Yeah.
really are limited.
Yeah.
And, um
Yeah, so it does seem like what's set up in the film is that for Sheriff Bell, there is this huge sort of black cloud that's just constantly coming, right? And that it's this senseless violence that's coming and coming,
yeah.
um, kind of like in the never-ending story that it's this nothingness that's coming to eat up the world. I feel like sometimes, but it just feels like there's this dark cloud of
Yeah,
this that's coming, and maybe Uncle Ellis says, "Look, this isn't anything new. This has
yeah,
been happening.
yeah,
This is maybe you just haven't been paying attention, or
yeah.
because maybe he idolizes the past because his opening, monologue is about how a lot of sheriffs in the early days didn't even carry guns,
Yep, yep,
right? They didn't even need it, right? And now you've got all of this stuff, and he's like, well, but this senseless violence has been happening sort of since the beginning of humanity,
yeah,
right? It's actually not something new.
yeah.
Um,
When I thought about him and his basically wishing almost he was in a different age, It
Yes.
brought me back
Yes.
to the movie we reviewed last time, which was The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
And there's that great scene where Frodo says, I wish I could have been, why am I born in this time?
Right.
And
Right.
Gandalf basically says, we don't have the choice of the times we're
Right.
born in, but
Right.
we must act within
It's
those.
what you do with the time you've been given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so Sheriff Bell just wants to pull out.
Yeah. And he does, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going after Chigurh, right, who,
Mhm.
as far as he knows, is still out there,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's when when he encounters Llewelyn finally at the,
Yeah.
finally dead in the motel room. It feels like
Yeah.
that's the last straw for him. He's like, right, and and so rather than you know taking so again he's sort of giving up his agency
Yeah.
and his responsibility to act in the world. So rather than going after Chigurh at the end, he says, I'm going to retire,
Yeah.
right? And so he kind of violates the sort of blessed are the peacemakers kind of idea that those
Yeah.
who seek justice in the world, right, are blessed in some way, and that
Yeah.
it's just the world isn't fit for him anymore. But it
Yeah.
may be just that he's grown old and he's grown tired. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you said before, inertia is a very strong force as you get older, right? It's,
Did I say that?
you did say that. Yes.
Sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And
But yeah,
so
so he's a sad figure.
he is.
And certainly there comes maybe a time where one steps back a bit, but
Yeah.
he really seems to be avoiding the world because it's just too complicated for
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
and he can't handle it.
Yeah.
And now here, I'd like your read on this at the
Okay.
end. And once again, that scene with him and his wife, played by Tess Harper, I
Yes.
believe, really good scene. And her not responding in so much is really effective.
Hmm.
But he talks about this dream,
Yep.
and it's of his father passing him by, kind of like he's not there,
Yep.
and he's got this little horn like they'd carry embers in to keep a fire going. And
Yep.
somewhere in that cold distance, he'd be there
Yeah. Let me just
waiting
read it
for
to
him.
you. Let me just,
You want to,
yeah. So
yeah,
it
get this.
says, yeah, he says, so in the, yeah, I pulled this one up because this was an
Sure.
important quote, right?
Yeah.
So, and in the dream, I knew that he was going on ahead
Yeah.
and he was fixing to make a fire somewhere out there in all that dark and all that cold.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. And then I woke up.
Yeah. So you could go two ways with that. Some want to say, well, see, there's a little hope kind of something beyond. I don't think that because just previously he had said, I thought when I got old, God would come in, but he didn't. And I don't blame him. It's sort of interesting. He doesn't necessarily say he's an atheist,
Right.
but it's like God's not relevant to any of this. He doesn't
Yeah.
come
It's kind of
in.
like Lewis, right after the death of his wife. It's like,
Um,
it's not that God doesn't exist, but oh, this is what God's like
yeah,
after
yeah,
all.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've got some people want to say, well, that's a little light at the end,
Yeah.
which I doubt really. I
Yeah.
think the then I woke up
Hmm.
is the key thing. I think then it goes, and then I woke up and this is the reality.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, that was my read as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, there is no there definitely is no hope, I would say.
yeah,
Yeah, he wakes up because this is a world in which Chigurh is out there.
yeah.
And in one sense it's Chigurh is out there and his dad isn't, right?
Hmm.
This who
Yeah,
was maybe this kind of beacon of hope that he
yeah,
had. And so yeah, and so I think it's just I think it is resignation. I don't think it's actual hope. I think it's
yeah.
the
I agree.
violence wins in the end,
Yeah,
and
it
we're
does.
just all the whims of fate.
And
Yeah.
one thing we haven't touched on that I'd want to mention at least is
Yeah.
the take on the classical Western here.
Oh,
This is a Western movie. I
yeah.
mean, it's not back in the 19th century,
Right.
post-Civil War or anything like that, but it is a Western movie. Um, but in the classic Westerns, at least pre Clint Eastwood,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you've got the good guys and the bad guys. and virtue wins out.
Yeah, there's a showdown between good and evil.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and good wins. So, and there's a clear moral order. And in this movie, the only person that seems to have a clearly stated moral order is Chigurh, and it's not a very
Well,
good
I would
one.
say Carla Jean.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
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 that is true.
yeah,
But it's not a world of a moral order.
yeah.
Virtue's not rewarded.
No,
There's no way you can say good won in this.
no.
Uh,
At most, I think Carla Jean is maybe the hero of the film, but she dies too,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
There's no victory in her.
yeah,
But she's I would say she's maybe the moral conscience of the film.
yeah,
Um, but in the end, yeah, yeah. But that does then, I think then that does give us this question of how are we going to handle these same issues when
sure.
there's so much that is outside of our control, and you see all of these things. We're now more aware of what's happening in the world than any people in
Oh, yeah,
history,
sure.
right? And the question is, well, what am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah,
Right? So I know what's happening in these, far off places, but I don't have any control over that. And
yeah,
and so there is this, so we're more aware, but there's less we can actually do about it maybe. And so I think one of the temptations is then to take up the position of Sheriff Bell and just I'm just pulling it in.
yeah,
The world is too bad, the world is too much.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm just gonna sort of give up. And I think so that's one option that we have. And the film, I mean, that's what happens in the film, but I don't think the film endorses that. Like, it's not like
Mhm.
this is a great thing. It's just sort of
Yeah,
lamenting the state of affairs, but without maybe offering any solutions to it.
yeah, and I mean, so I think the film tells us that, well, in one sense, that's reality.
That's fate. Yeah.
That's fate, yeah.
Yeah.
And but then the question is, what do you do with it? And
Hmm.
uh, I think his way, Sheriff Bell's, is not the proper one.
Hmm.
Um, he gives in too quickly. Doesn't even want to cooperate with the other authorities that are working on the case. So and I can look at that. And you mentioned the technology we have, and I'm a finite human being.
Right.
Yeah, and there's only so much um, anger or sadness or whatever that I can absorb. Even when if you just start to go from bad news to bad news to bad news, it
Right.
can be overwhelming. And so one could just say, I'm not going to listen to the news at all. I'm not going to
Right.
focus. Or one can sort of, I'm not sure if this is quite the way to take Voltaire's Candide's ending, but cultivate your own garden. Uh, you could you could be that as getting away from it all, like the sheriff, or you could say, well, that which I can do, I do. I think that has to be our response.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a lot to think about, Bill. We'll
Yeah.
come up with a final question to ask here in a bit, but thanks for joining me on this episode.
Well, it was a pleasure watching a great film again. Really
Yes,
was.
very good. So here's where we landed. At the end of the film, Carla Jean refuses to let Chigurh hide behind the coin. She tells him, the coin don't have no say. It's just you. Do you see that moment as the film's clearest statement against fatalism? Or is it just a final act of courage in a world where fate still wins? Tell us what you think in the comments below, and thanks for joining us. If you want to keep looking for the wisdom of the ages in the films of today, make sure to follow or subscribe to Socrates at the Cinema wherever you're listening. Pull up a seat with us to explore great ideas through great films by having great conversations.